The USG Ishimura is one of the most fleshed out ships in the entire Dead Space universe, if not, then the most fleshed out. The ship's layout and systems are fascinating to me, that it had been built to mainly rip planets apart and leaves no stone unturned in the search for resources to sustain human civilizations. The Ishimura is the first and most famous planet-cracking vessel. The ship can carry and house over 1,000 personnel. The ship is mainly a mining vessel, however it does possess other productions as well, such as medical researchers, whether that be through cryogenics, chemicals, and zero gravity, that has been proven most effective at developing new ways of treating patients. In this video, we'll be going through a deep dive into the planet cracker, the USG Ishimura. The bridge deck would be the command center for the entire ship. From the tram station, there would be only one way into the deck, with a door that leads through to a long hallway that stretches to the main deck area. The hallway looks to be a security holding area, maybe a reception, due to the adjacent security station separated by a glass window. This area would be used to make sure that the visitors or personnel are safe to be near the flight assistants and captain. Moving through the corridor and through to the doors, we come to a large open area that would lead down to the captain's nest, the security station, the atrium elevators, the administration and command array, along with the external access. The large open section of this deck would be called the main atrium and would be used to assist the captain in flight and planet cracking operations, to command the gravity tethers, stabilizers, and other flight computers. The flight assistants would have a similar role to as many co-pilots. They would do as the captain would command. Moving past the open space and traveling down the steps at the other side of the room will lead to a service lift. Traveling down the shaft will present us with the next area, being the VIP escape pod room. In the state of an emergency in which the ship is no longer able to be saved, or in the case of some other disaster, these would be used by the captain and the personnel that would work inside the captain's nest, or maybe visitors. The room houses 4 escape pods that can only hold one person at a time. The captain's nest is an area of utmost importance, and only officers holding the rank of level 5 were allowed to enter. This would be the captain's observatory and office. This room would possess the ability to override any and all controls within the ship that would be called the executive override controls that would be used in the event of a mutiny. This would have been how the captain had cut the communications array from making a full SOS call in the events of Aegis 7. Moving back to the main atrium, we can see 2 elevator shafts. One leads down into the mining administration and back up to the communications or external access in the upper levels. However, let's explore the other shaft that leads down into the ship system storage rooms. These would be used like server rooms in our world to house the information, data, and codes used for the internal core systems. Without them, the planet cracker would not be able to function as expected. Computer systems would not be able to function efficiently. At the end of the room is a piece to the defense system on board the ship, the Asteroid Defense System, or ADS for short. Let's travel back up to the main atrium now, and travel down the other shaft as we pass the computer core that is the central processing room for the Ishimura's database. It would allow for locking down and relieving lockdowns of certain rooms and locked doors, disengaging of the ship's engines, as well as allowing access to the ship's library and history. Traveling further down, we will come to the mining administration that was a set of workplaces for planning the destinations and direction of the huge planet cracker. These areas would allow for communications between the captain and the mining teams. Some would call this location the brain behind the brawn of the ship. Traveling to the upper levels of this deck will present us with communications and external access areas. Moving past the double doors would take us to one of the set of aegis cannons, past an elevator. However, through another set of doors will show us the way to the ship's communications array. The room overlooking the chamber would be used to oversee the maintenance happening within the adjacent room, and to find faults within the array itself. The array is big and powerful enough to broadcast to great lengths, allowing the bridge personnel to send messages or even talk to other settlements, while being quite far away or nowhere near to civilization. The external access would have been used to travel down to the external set of aegis cannons located on the exterior of the hull. Maintenance workers would be summoned to travel to these defense systems to assess the systems for repair or manual control. The crew deck, much like the name suggests, is the residential area for the workers, staff, and other personnel. The deck would also have bars, restaurants, and recreational centers for off-duty personnel. Leaving the tram station will take us past the security station and to a waiting area used for meeting friends and family, along with waiting for trams. Moving through the left side door will take us to the 0G basketball arena, a recreational area for the crew. Taking a short trip inside of an elevator will take us to the third sleeping block, housing bunk beds for the crew members. Moving back to the main area and going up to the balcony will present us with two paths. Taking the nearest will take us to the executive security room that would be used to defend the vital personnel such as Captain Matthias and Dr. Kine, along with other members of the crew, deemed to be protected to an executive level. Going inside of another elevator takes us to the executive quarters that would be where the VIP members of the crew would sleep and relax in their spare time. This area was also used by First Officer White and First Engineer Jacob Temple. Moving past this area will take us to the shuttle bay, which would allow the VIPs an alternative means of escaping the ship if the situation was too great to handle. Going back the way we came and to the door at the end of the balcony will take us to the mess hall, where people would be able to relax, having a drink with friends or having a meal. Moving away from the mess hall will take us to the first and second sleep bunk areas. This area would also house a shower room for personal hygiene. Each of the sleeping bunks would also have a lobby area as well. It has also been theorized that the crew deck possesses a cinema somewhere. However, the whereabouts is unknown. Diving deeper into the Ishimura takes us to the closest deck to our position, the mining deck, where the miners would go to work. Walking from the tram station and through the heavy bulkhead door introduces us to the A deck, preparation. This is where the miners would suit up for their workday. Taking the cargo lift down the shaft brings us to our first stop, the mineral processing area, traveling through the antechambers that could be seen to be used to examine the diagnostics of the machinery for the status of such furnaces and grinders for supervisors to advise on maintenance, and signing workers and miners into the next location. Moving past these corridors will take us into the main area of the mineral processing area. This area would be used to separate the ores and minerals from the chunks of rock and boulders. The room adjacent to the processing area would be the control room that would be used to adjust the zero gravity settings. Exiting this room and taking the back corridor into the antechambers and back to the cargo lift, going deeper into the shaft, will send us to the extraction area. This place would be used to further process what had been left over from the furnaces and other machinery. The lower level would also house the mining bay, allowing the miners to store masses brought in from the planet cracks within the history of the Ishimura, allowing the personnel to break down the large masses of rock and terrain into smaller pieces, ready for the processing area. Moving back to the extraction area will present us with the supervisory area, which will act as offices for these higher up miners. Going up to the higher level will take us into the mining control room, where the executive mining management team would be overseeing the operations, with a window allowing them the ability to watch the extraction in progress. Taking the cargo lift down to the lowest level will take us to the maintenance center. The first room presented to us would be the repair room, where workers would be able to find the tools necessary for their tasks. However, moving across the chasm will take us to the equipment maintenance bay, where a storage room would be housed, holding more equipment, with a door that can block unauthorized personnel from entering. The reason for this would be because the equipment in the wrong hands could be harmful to the user and others nearby. Across the gap between the decks would also be the computer hologram that would lift the lock and could access other areas of the deck. Taking the tram to the upper decks of the ship will present us with the flight deck. Moving through the nearby door will take us to the crossroads. For now, let's take the right path, which brings us to the cargo bay, where items of interest would be held for visitors that were unable to be taken further into the ship, such as in the case of the mission to Aegis 7 with the red marker. Taking the direct path from the crossroads will take us into the tram repair room that would be used to repair suspended tram units or to replace them from the maintenance bay by the use of hydraulic cranes and arms. Going down the last path presents us to the tram trench that could be used as an alternative means of travel and is used by maintenance and cleaning staff along with mining crews tasked with taking the fresh ores and minerals to the storage deck. Traveling through the nearby corridors would lead into the maintenance bay and the tram control center. The maintenance bay would be used to hoist the trams down to be extensively repaired when broken down or worse. The bay would even house an observation platform so that the staff can get a better view of the external damage to the tram units. The tram control room would also be used to manually control the trams if they were not in service and required repairs or to be replaced, and to boot the tram back up to be used in service. From here, the tram personnel can observe the performance and the status of the tram unit. Moving through the next set of corridors will provide us with another way to the maintenance bay, like an alleyway. Moving past these hallways takes us to a maintenance back room, designed to assemble tools, that has an elevator leading towards the access corridors, taking us towards a storage room. But more importantly, the flight lounge, where visitors, new and current workers, could wait to either be given the green light to proceed to the crew deck or to board a shuttle to leave the planet cracker. Outside the double doors will show us the amazing size of the hangar bay, which can house 4 shuttles at a time due to the gravity ports held at the bottom of the bay. Down there also has a corridor that leads to another way of traveling out and into the Ishimura while being attached to a nearby docking station. The hangar bay also possesses a connection to the cargo storage bay that would be used to attach a belongings case to the adjacent shuttles. Above the hangar bay would also be the control rooms, both A and B, that would act as an air traffic control room. However, they would not be managing traffic circulating around the ship, but rather the traffic coming into and out of the hangar bay. However, let us move back into the flight lounge, as there is one more area to be explored, or should I say, corridor, as moving through it presents us with the toilets, but more importantly with the means to travel to the tram waiting area. The medical deck seems to be the only deck that is equipped with 2 separate tram stations or waiting areas. The front could be seen for patients either entering or exiting the deck, and the back end sector for staff members. This path would take them through the cryogenics lab that would be used to research bacteria and to freeze bodies for the long journey back to civilizations, like the church's morgue vault, preserving the flesh for a more respectful departure at the family's discretion. Progressing further, we'll present the staff with the chemical lab that would be used to mix certain chemicals together and to research the results. However, due to the nature of the work, another hallway would be used by those not assigned to that task. Traveling through the corridor and up the service lift will take the staff to the zero-gravity therapy room that could be used to help those adjust to the effects that first-time users would feel when traversing through zero-G areas that some workers and miners would have to be accustomed to. However, this could also be used in conjunction with psychiatrists' therapy to eliminate stress or anxiety and other mental factors or illnesses. Moving back through the corridor, we'll present the staff with the previous path that we came through. However, another one is present as well that takes staff members to the imaging diagnostics ward that would be used to diagnose patients with the use of X-rays, magnetic resonance, along with scanning equipment that would be majorly advanced compared to medical treatment of today. This brings us to what the patients could experience in their trips to the medical deck. The first area after being dropped off that they would visit would be the security station that would hold patients here to examine them for anything that could bring harm to the doctors, officers, and nurses. They would then proceed to the additional waiting room outside of the emergency room. That would be like a reception. The ER, like in our world, would be a medical treatment facility specializing in emergency medicines. The doctors and nurses would treat patients with acute care. However, during the time of the Aegis 7 outbreak, the ER would be swamped with casualties from the flight deck. The following hallways are an extension of the emergency room for patients of lesser issues. The following room is known as the ICU, or the intensive care unit, with glass barriers allowing to seal the patient in for containment issues in the case of a contagious infection. Going around the corner will bring us to Dr. Mercer's office, the place where he would continue researching and mixing chemicals to create new medicines to help treat patients. Through another set of doors and into a hallway, we will find an elevator. Going down said elevator will bring us to the morgue, where the deceased would be placed if there is no more room for them in the cryogenics lab. The morgue also has a containment unit for special cases that could be contagious. In the event of the infestation, this unit was used to preserve the captain's corpse. Let's move to an area where most of the medical research takes place within the medical deck, the research wing. The main area to this wing has an open space with a lower and more compact area fitted with 3 additional rooms, one being Dr. Kind's office, and another leads to the Biological Prosthetics Center, where embryos would be created in tanks in the means of futuristic cloning to help workers and miners replace lost limbs, but also to assist in surgeries in the task of replacing organs that are failing within a patient. Going back towards the imaging diagnostics ward, we will come to a door that leads into Sick Bay 2, with the first being not too far away. This is where Nicole would meet her unfortunate run-in with fate, where long-term patients would be placed if there is no more room inside of the ER and the ICU. In the outbreak or infestation of the planet cracker, this area would take 60 patients on. This area would also house several wards and rooms similar to a hospital department. Heading to the back end of the ship, we will come to a massive storage area for storing the ores that would be harvested by the furnaces and machinery inside of the mining deck. The room looks to be 40, maybe 50 feet tall and 20 feet wide. The ores would be stored inside of cargo crates, and the zero gravity would activate when the crates are to be taken and pulled out of the cargo hatch. Moving into the adjacent deck brings us to engineering. Moving through the hallway, the control room would present itself to us. Inside this chamber, personnel would monitor the ship's engines, stabilizers, and centrifuge to make sure everything is running as expected. If a problem would arise, such as the fuel lines or centrifuge malfunctioning, then the personnel in this area would use the control room's instruments to contact engineering teams and specialists to go down to the affected rooms and to find the cause and fix the issues that would arise. The teams going down to the centrifuge would have to go through the decontamination room that would lock down as soon as a group of people would enter and sanitize the occupants before allowing them to enter either side. The rooms outside would house chairs like a makeshift waiting room in case multiple teams were needed or maintenance was to be needed as well. The gravity centrifuge is a huge piece of machinery inside of a large circular room that, when activated, would be used to hold the Ishimura in orbit around the planets it would either crack or visit in its career. The centrifuge is powered by 2 generators, and once activated, the floor slats will peel back, bringing the vacuum of space into the interior of the room. Moving back up to the main area would present us with the machinery division that would be used to create parts for certain machines across the ship in case something was needed to be replaced, rather than being repaired. Maintenance would inform the engineers of the parts that they would require for their tasks, and the engineers would comply. The adjacent room would be used to control the fuel lines feeding the engines. The massive planet cracker would require a lot of fuel, hence why this area was to be so huge. This area would be very dark even before the outbreak, so other methods of lighting such as flashlights would be needed here, as there would be a chasm separating the fuel storage into 2 areas that would control both engines intakes, one for each side. The reason for the chasm could be seen to be that below the catwalks would be where the fuel was to be stored. However, there was a means of travel via the conveyor. Heading up the ramps and to the main control room will present us with a bulkhead door that would once lead to a room of unknown purpose due to a collision with an outside debris floating in space. However, traversing through this hazardous location will present us with a very noisy room once back inside the interior of the deck. The noise would be the engine machinery working to ignite the engines and keep them functioning as expected. Moving further away from the sounds will show us into the engine catwalks that would house storage rooms which could store tools and equipment, along with spare parts for the engines. Getting to the bottom of the catwalks and traveling through the corridors will take us to a huge room that would be used to fire the engines and maintain their power fluctuations. Acting as the internal farm for the Ishimura, the Hydroponics Deck has everything from plant life that would feed the crew all the way to providing oxygen for everyone. Moving from the tram station and down to the elevator shaft would bring us to the sapling room, where food would be created from pumpkins to watermelons, etc. Exiting the room takes us to the atmosphere control room, where the personnel could flush harmful gases and bring oxygen levels back down to a safe level, if necessary to the survival of the crew. Moving through a long hallway would take us to the food storage room, which, much like the name suggests, would be to store the goods grown in this deck. Heading into the western tower, we can be shown to one of the many growing chambers, where more food is grown, such as vegetables, along with other plant life to support oxygen levels throughout the ship. This area would contain various other rooms that would act as greenhouses for certain plant life. In the center of the room behind a service lift would be the feeding system that would be used to feed the plant life the nutrients they would need to survive. The lights in these rooms would be very bright and would emulate solar power to work in conjunction with the plant's transmutive abilities. Moving to the second level would present us with the control room, where the scientists would monitor the gas levels and the plant statuses. Going through the additional room would present a long hallway that would be known to be the refrigeration unit that would be used to store cold foods or other plant life that can only survive in cooler environments. Moving through the zero-gravity rooms that would act as more storage for this tower would take us into the venting system for the towers that would vent the excess heat, with a control room being present above to monitor the system in case of an issue occurring. Heading into the eastern tower would present us with the same properties as the western tower, providing more plant life with what they need to grow and prosper. The filtration systems, such as the ventilation system, would be used to reduce fumes that was comprised of large interconnected chambers and pipes which ran under various decks. These systems would also help to transport waste to the water treatment facility held within the sewers of the ship that would also filter the waste from the water, allowing for the water to be used again, providing clean water for the crew to wash themselves and to drink as well. The filtration system also utilized various air filtration processes to purify the contaminated oxygen or recycle carbon dioxide. The important locations on board the Ishimura are equipped with sensors which will detect contaminants. When one or more of these are detected, the area would be locked down until the threat was removed to protect the crew's well-being. Due to other disasters such as the One disaster, which saw a planet cracker fall back into the planet, destroying the colony and ship, the CEC had fitted the Ishimura with enough emergency shuttles to make sure that if an emergency was to occur again, that the personnel would be able to make it off the ship in time. These would be scattered throughout the decks, so no matter where people were, they would be able to evacuate in quick succession. The escape shuttles counted numbers at 50 with a capacity of around 27, each in order to accommodate the ship's complement of 1,540 personnel. Now we are coming up to the last known location of the ship, known as the maintenance deck. As people would get off the tram, they would be able to see a computer with information and communication systems that would be used to communicate with other decks in need of repairs or other forms of maintenance. However, this deck would mainly be used as a housing bay for shuttles with shuttle bay 46 to 48. This area could also be seen to be used by the top tier workers as to hold meetings that would be very important to the work within their departments. The USG Ishimura was to be the biggest planet cracker of her class, and because of the size, a tram station would be in place for personnel to be able to make it to their working placements, and the crew deck quicker so that they may complete their working schedules more effectively. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the deep dive, then please hit the like button, comment your thoughts down below, and I look forward to hearing from you. And be sure to subscribe to join the British Alliance today, and don't forget to ring in the notification bell so that you do not miss a single notification of when new content goes live, whether that be whenever I go live or when the videos and posts do. Whichever the case, I hope you indeedly did enjoy, and I hope to see all of you all once again. But for now, please make sure that you all indeedly do have a good one.